Yeah. Let's keep that to DL. So how'd Friday go?
Boring.
And
Quiet.
okay, so were you supposed to take notes on the second section of like chapter 5 and the whole chapter?
That's what we did.
No, we did chapter 7, but we didn't finish chapter 5.
It's this guy right here.
Because for some reason, whenever you said do the second section, like last week, I did the second section of the 7th chapter. I don't know why though.
Huh.
But you said the second section of like the 5th chapter, and I was wondering if we actually needed to do that because we never talked about it.
Because we did one section of 5 and we were like, and I don't feel like doing anything, so we aren't. And we were like, alright.
What?
And so
We did chapter 7.
we were supposed to have it done, and we didn't need it, and then we used it.
Oh, all this.
Yeah.
That is strange.
Hey, you never talked about it?
Hey, I had it down in one second, everybody's staring at me.
Yeah, that's what's up with that?
I was just not remembering the actual thing.
Yeah. Did I give you guys just the wrong page number entirely?
If you
You
did,
said
I'm gonna be
read chapter 7.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We're not starting
Read it out.
Because we've already done section 1 and number 5.
Are we doing a vlog this
You know, we talked about this, and then we were doing this. In fact, yeah, this should be the next thing we talk about. Oops. Interesting. That's really funny. Oh, no big deal. Yeah, we'll come back to that. It's fine.
Quick question, are we doing a vlog this week?
But,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so, here's the news. I'll try
We'll be working on Wednesday. Alright. So, somebody tell me. Let's bring up this guy.
Are we chapter 7?
Chapter 7, yeah.
I'll just go back and check.
Yeah, we're going to hit all these different things. Part of the reason I'm kind of going with this is because we talked a lot about civil rights, and I'm kind of going thematic more than anything else. So next week, we'll actually be starting reading this book right here.
Family Sisters?
Yep. So, if you don't have it, you need it. Next week, starting Monday, we're going to be reading that, and we're going to be doing it every single day. So, we'll bang it out in a week.
What we
Read out loud in class.
No, we're not going to read it out loud.
Thanks God.
Yeah, it's always kind of awkward. Most likely, in fact, we won't be reading it actually in class. We'll be like, all right, so we read this. What happened? You know, talk about that sort of thing. Imagine that.
For a little bit.
No, you need it Monday.
Not get that thing to work. The thing for it is not.
It's not working. All right, bring your phone to me, either before school tomorrow or after school tomorrow or something like that, and we'll just make it work. I'll punch it.
We ran over.
Anyways, so hopefully you guys got everything for this from Friday. Would somebody tell me what are the Jim Crow laws? Yeah, Annie.
They are segregation laws enacted in the South after the Reconstruction, and they were a way to Southern government, just like another way to take away voting rights from Africans.
All right, so like, what were some examples of that? Like, how'd they do that? I mean, because it was legal, right? Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you, Esther. Okay, righto. So what was the court case where they put in a motion where, and somebody else, anyone can answer this, sorry, I didn't mean just you. I'm not going to really go. Yeah. No, but you, Esther. Said it there. I was like, right. I was waiting for like, no, you got it wrong. I'm gonna crap. Call me out. That's good. That's good stuff. That's right. Number 7. It's terrible. But seriously though, what was the name of the court case where they actually put on question this idea of whether that's legal or not. Yeah.
I don't think there was a court case.
Which court case? What are you thinking about? Tell me.
The school board one, like Brown.
Brown versus Board of Education.
Yeah,
That's gonna come later, but same idea. Yes, ma'am. It was Plessy versus Ferguson. So how do they find? In favor or against? They found against. I'm going to rephrase that. Did they say yes, you can segregate, or no, you cannot?
Is it separately?
That's what they came up with. Separate but equal. You can segregate, but it must be equal. Was it really equal? No. That ultimately is what overthrows segregation. Plessy versus Ferguson. Yes, ma'am.
For that, that's the first part. I learned that freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the story about it. I don't about like this African American. I don't know.
Yeah,
But it says
a train car.
but the thing is like the white man, but he was so like I don't know.
I honestly don't know the difference in that particular thing. He may have actually been. Now you mentioned that sounds familiar. Although I might also be thinking of Gandhi because the same thing happened with him in India. So this is kind of where he's fighting for civil rights in India, and that's kind of the same sort of thing. So you guys know Rosa Parks, of course. Well, she's actually who? She's doing the same thing as Plessy, if I get that correct. So that's going to be an important bit of legislature because what tends to happen in court cases is once the Supreme Court finds one way, or not even the Supreme Court, once a court finds one way, people tend to do it over and over and over again. That's called the precedent. So when you hear someone talk about we don't want to set the wrong precedent, what we're saying is we don't want to set a standard of behavior that works true for just about anything. So. What was a poll tax? Actually, I'm going to go over here. Yes, ma'am.
It was a tax that required voters to pay a tax to vote. It was for African Americans. Poor African Americans could not afford it.
Yeah, true. What about, the next one? Literacy test? Or you got a question?
I was.
Okay, go ahead.
It was a reading and writing test that Southern states used to prevent African Americans from voting.
Last name?
I
No, I
But
know.
now last year we got them all 3 years in a row.
was the most important person in that class.
Like every had a different issue.
And guess who's making more members?
Nobody. Yes. That was good.
That will be a trend.
Just that one time. In the face. So, why was the literacy test unfair? Yeah, Ms. Stolberg.
Because, like, for African Americans and ex-slaves that agreed to be never got the education.
It was actually illegal to teach slaves to read and write. So,
White people are also
Yeah.
white people.
it's true, but here's again where separate but equal doesn't hold up. See, what they would do is they would have stuff like, all right, what I need you to do if you're a black man is you to go and you need to copy word for word the Declaration of Independence for this section of this section, which is really complex language. It's not real easy, things like that, and maybe run out of time. So it was very skewed. Whereas with, a white man, oh, put an X right here, it's fine, you can write. So it was things like that. It was an unfair test. In many ways, people have criticized a lot of like the citizenship tests and things like that to these same sort of Jim Crow laws. For instance, like one of the questions they ask on the citizenship test is name the chief justices of the Supreme Court. Most Americans can't do that, I mean, some really in-depth things that you have to learn And usually people who are proponents of this say, well, yeah, but you've grown up learning about all this about American history. They have no idea, so they don't have a basis in the culture. Other folks say, that's stupid, you don't need to know it anyways. What about this right here, the grandfather clause? Yeah, Jay.
It was the law to disqualify African American voters by allowing to vote only men whose fathers and grandfathers voted before 1867.
So what's the problem with that? Mm-hmm.
It allowed poor white people to vote, but not poor black people.
Yeah, because, they have been slaves. So again, all these things set to keep people from voting fairly. And this just kind of became the bylaw. So, can someone tell me, how did folks like Booker T. Washington fight against segregation? Yeah.
He argued that African Americans needed to accommodate themselves to segregations that lacked to build up their economic resources and establish their reputations as hardworking, honest citizens.
So he was a proponent of education. What did he do for a living? Yeah, he was a teacher. Yeah, imagine that. And what did he do? Yeah.
Vocational school to prepare African Americans to exercise citizenship.
What's the name of that school? It's one of the most prestigious schools in the country, the Tuskegee Institute. So this is going to the Tuskegee Institute, and or did you say where is it? Anyhow, it's going to provide an opportunity for Black Americans to learn. It's all sorts of different things, from law and medicine to agricultural studies, all sorts of different things. And he's going to fight it by providing an example of a studious, well-funded, well-educated school. How does it start off? Basically as a bunch of students with no buildings. So he's literally got to build it from nothing. That's one of the kind of amazing stories about it. It's pushing, believing, building. And now you have this. What about Ida Wells? Wells, sorry. Yes.
She was an African American woman who fought for justice, and she was born into slavery in 1862 and grew up in Holy Springs, Mississippi, and she wrote articles about all the racism and mistreatment of blacks, and local whites made her out of town for it.
Okay. So, did that stop her? What did she do then? Yes, ma'am.
Writing about
Why does that matter? Yes.
because a lot of blacks would have just given up, especially because she's a woman. So it's not even almost not only saying that blacks have rights, it's also saying that women do, which is not very known.
Which is why we have a connection again between all civil rights movements. But in addition to that, this goes to a larger question. How does the media influence politics? Think about it. The media, not just, newspapers, but also television, the internet, all these things. Yes. Absolutely. How many of you guys watch the news? Good for you. Those of you who don't, it's fine. You're a teenager. It's okay. If People are like, well, you should watch the news, know about the world. Well, okay, but the news is boring. The news is terrible. I tend to think that your all's generation more kind of relies on the internet for a lot of things. I mean, heck, even my generation, that's a lot of them are like, yeah, I'm not watching the news, it's a waste of my time. But they will keep atop of things by reading internet reviews and articles, things like that. But regardless, all of this plays an important role. As you said, in some cases, the media is literally trying to change your opinion in a specific way. They represent one aspect of it. The other thing is, we are heavily influenced by what we see and hear, and it's brought to our attention. If things just kind of happen, we don't hear about it, doesn't affect us. So the media, by choosing what they bring to our attention, can influence our reaction to things. For instance, if you look at what's going on in Syria, people are informed about what's going on to some degree. They have an influence. That influences the government one way or the other. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Basically, you have the Civil War. And in addition to that, the Civil War is political, religious, and ethnic. And all these different factors are contributing to a war that's getting more and more violent. And recently, the Bashar al-Assad, the guy who is in charge of Syria, was using poison gas. Now, he's done this a few different times, using chemical weapons, and the President Obama said flat out, if you use chemical weapons, we will become involved. So when he did it, this big, like, oh, here we go. What are we going to do? Are we going to be involved? Yes, no, maybe so. And Congress is voting on whether we're going to go to war. Now, ostensibly, we're not going to send troops, and we're just going to basically have a no-fly zone, things like that. But the UN has said we're not getting involved. So if we do it, it's just the U.S. and nobody else. Okay? So again, when you look at how it's portrayed by the media, we see pictures of children being killed and things like that, and it has this very emotional response. Yet in the same token, they're talking about the expenses and these other wars and this, that, and the other, and people generally aren't very much in favor of another war. So the media plays a role in not only shaping what we think, but also what brings our attention to it. Because by having all this stuff about Syria, do we think about Afghanistan as much? Do we think about these other places? It does affect us. So that's one of the reasons that's so important.
I have a question. Is he still trying to bring troops out of Afghanistan?
Obama?
Or-
Yeah, that's what the idea is to do. But again, he says that it's going to take a number of years, so depends on what happens. Can someone tell me where my mouse go? This right here. Let's move that in real quick. Hang on. Nope. That one. Las Blancas. Yes, Miss Lado.
What kind of people connected to Americans that fought for their right to working the poverty of large ranch owners by cutting coal and barbed wire fences?
Yeah. So they were fighting back for what exactly? What was taking? Okay, that's important. Land. Guys, one of the things we understand is the Spanish-American War really shapes Mexican-American relations. Or Mexican-American War, excuse me. Spanish-American. That too. But what this is going to do is reshape the American West, adding lots of territories, and this is going to make a lot of people angry, and they're going to lose territories, and they're going to fight back. Now, do you guys know what the number one production at this time, number one business in this area around Texas and New Mexico and all that, what do they do? Yeah, farm, but specifically more than farming, they herd cattle, steak, yummy, yummy, yummy. So food production in this way. So by cutting big holes, burning stuff, and letting the cows out, things like that, stealing cows, what have you, it's fighting an economic battle. Do you think this influences modern immigration feelings and reforms? Oh, you bet you it does. To this day, the largest growing group of minorities are from where? And that's just Mexico, Latin America in general, all these countries. And so this is part of why when you look at relationships in that area, there's a lot of anti-Latin American sentiments in these countries. They face a lot of the same problems. What about the Chinese Exclusion Act? What about all that? How are the Chinese treated? Yeah, not very well, were they? I mean, this is the type of situation people of all different minorities find themselves in. Could the Chinese vote? What about Chinese citizens? Again, you see a lot of the same sort of tactics used, like the Jim Crow laws. Hang on. Let me zoom back out. Where'd it go? From operating on to 1898, the court ruled that individuals of Chinese citizens born in the United States cannot be stripped of their citizenship, yet the court upheld the Chinese Exclusion Act and several other discriminators. So again, how did the Chinese use the court system to protest discrimination? What did they do? How did Chinese immigrants use the court system to protest discrimination? What's the court case we're looking at? Nope. Yes. So how are they using this to guarantee their rights? How does the court work that way? They did. And here's the thing is, this is the whole aspect of what the court's job is to do. If you think about it, legislation, they just create the laws, yeah? Who is it that actually enforces it, makes certain that it all makes sense, explains it, all this stuff? That's what the courts do. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, the Supreme Court's trying to change the law. The great court can't change the law. All they can do is interpret it. There are ways that they cannot, enforce things. But that's one of the powers given them by the framing of the Constitution. The idea is that legislation, the Supreme Court, and the president and his offices are equal, all have the same amount of power. But some people want more power than others. So, again, it's just its own thing. But the court system functions here, and we see some things upheld despite this. Even so, the Chinese had it really bad, especially out west. There's all sorts of anti-Chinese league. People saw them as not really human, things like that. So a lot of stuff we saw in the Video America Story of Us, and the simple fact is, were women really treated any better? Not really. Let's talk about this for just a second. Women in the workplace. How many guys have ever heard of the wage gap? things like that. Okay. Have you guys ever heard of the glass ceiling? Okay. Let me show. No. Kind of keep going. All right, guys. So here's basically a nutshell, talking about what it is. All right. So if you look at many of the increases that women have made in rights since, we're talking this idea of Seneca Falls and so on and so forth, is there's still some major problems. One of them is this idea of the glass ceiling and wage inequality. Basically, here's in a nutshell. If you take the average amount of money that a man makes and the average amount of money that a woman makes, women make about 80 cents to the dollar that a man makes. So about, a fifth less. In addition, if you look at the number of men versus women in management positions, there are way more men than women. Why is that? Well, part of the problem has to do with society. For instance, the expectation is that if you have a child, who stays home and takes care of that child? Woman. So while she's doing that, is her career advancing? No. So by the time she ends up getting back to work, she has lost out on all these opportunities. So by the time she retires, she has lost out on all these years and thus makes less than men. In addition to that, think about the types of careers that men are pushed into going into. A lot of business, managerial positions, things like that. You're taught you should make money. What about women? Nursing, childcare, teaching, things that make less. So these skew the averages down. As far as women getting into managerial positions, historically there's been a big problem because there's sort of been this good old boy system in place where guys would only hire other guys and generally relegate women to positions like secretaries and things like that. As that has become highly illegal, things have been on the up and up. The problem again goes back to promotions. Women lose out on a lot of promotions because they are away doing other things, or if not, can actually rise to very high positions of authority. But actually, if you add everything together and look at, comparable work to comparable jobs, it's actually women make about 98 to 99 cents per dollar. It's still a little bit less, but basically it's negligible. So this begs the question, why do we have gender inequality? Because we do it to ourselves as much as anything. So again, when you look at how women are going to fight for their rights and things like that, a lot of it has to do with choices. Now, first of all, I'm not going to say any choice is wrong. Every choice is perfectly viable. But the simple fact is, more and more women are choosing to go on with their education. And more you see it's kind of acceptable for men to stay home. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
My dad does that.
So it's just one of those things that for us to really do this, we have to have a change in culture as much as anything else. And you see this idea of acceptance being a little bit trickier. I'm sorry I couldn't find that video too, because basically it was an economist. I think he was from some university, I can't remember where, but he talked about all these ideas and he really analyzed it. It's really about choices, things like socialization, as much as anything else. So, and just think about that as you guys kind of go about it, and realize that there's been a lot of pressure to go these different routes and do these different types of things because they had a long way to go. All right, that's it for today. Be sure to read. I'll put test essays up here probably tomorrow, so you guys can crack lacking on those. Because it's a day late, I'm probably just going to give you two, and you just, whichever one you want to do, you do. Yeah. Friday. On everything we've done so far. All the U.S. stuff. Sorry? 30 multiple choice questions, 1 essay.
Are you going to give us the essay?
Yep. This is what it says.